My name is Julia Wallace, and I'm about to tell you how I turned the most humiliating day of my life into my greatest victory. Imagine standing in the back of a grand cathedral, dressed head to toe in white, the very white dress you once planned to wear for your own wedding. Now imagine walking down that aisle, not toward love, but toward betrayal, revenge, and a truth so explosive it will tear apart everyone's perfect little world. That was me. The heavy oak doors of St. Mary's Cathedral creaked open, and 200 heads swiveled toward me like I was a ghost. Gasps erupted across the room, sharp and loud against the organ music. Whispers followed, hissing like snakes through the rows of pews. Is that Julia? She's wearing white? Does she have no shame? I kept my chin lifted high, shoulders back, every step deliberate and measured as my heels clicked on the burgundy carpet. The morning light streaming through the stained glass windows hit the subtle pearl beading on my gown, making me shimmer like an apparition. This was supposed to be my day, my dress, my aisle. But instead, my younger sister Chloe stood at the altar, radiant in ivory silk and a smug little smile plastered across her face. Beside her was Ethan Carter, the man who had once been my fiancé. Ethan looked up and froze when he saw me. The color drained from his face so fast it was almost comical. His mouth opened slightly, like he wanted to say something, but no words came out. Chloe, on the other hand, narrowed her eyes, her perfectly glossed lips parting in visible fury. I caught the tiniest flicker of panic on her face before she smoothed it away and replaced it with a look of defiance. Oh, she had no idea. They both thought they had beaten me. They thought I was here to cry, to beg, to fall apart in front of everyone. But I wasn't here to fall apart. I was here to end their perfect little fantasy. Because hidden inside my clutch was a secret that would turn this entire wedding upside down. A secret neither Chloe nor Ethan saw coming. The question wasn't whether their happily ever after would end. It was how spectacularly it would go down in flames. 2 weeks earlier, I'd been sitting in my apartment sorting through a stack of mail when I saw it, an envelope addressed in Chloe's unmistakable, looping handwriting. My stomach clenched as I opened it, already suspecting what was inside. The invitation was printed on thick pearl cardstock. Elegant, expensive, almost identical to the ones I'd chosen for my own wedding a year ago, because of course, Chloe had stolen that too. But it wasn't the invitation itself that stole my breath. It was the handwritten note tucked inside. "Dearest Julia," it read, "we know this might be difficult, but family should celebrate family. Come see what real love looks like. We'd hate for you to miss it. Love always, Chloe and Ethan." I stared at the words, reading them again and again, my hands trembling. Real love. As if the love I had once shared with Ethan had been fake. As if Chloe wasn't marrying my fiancé in my venue, wearing my life like a designer dress she'd borrowed without asking. The cruelty was breathtaking, calculated, almost artistic in its precision. I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by the wreckage of my canceled wedding, a stack of bills for non-refundable deposits, a bouquet of dried flowers I couldn't bring myself to throw away, a honeymoon itinerary now gathering dust. For a long moment, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Most people would have torn the invitation to shreds or ignored it entirely, but not me. No, I was going to show up, and when I did, I wouldn't be the victim Chloe wanted me to be. I'd be the storm that swallowed her whole. That night, as I placed the invitation on my coffee table, I made a silent promise to myself. To understand why this betrayal cut so deep, you have to understand my family. The Wallaces have always been complicated. Growing up, Chloe was the golden child. She was everything my parents adored: bubbly, beautiful, effortlessly charming. The kind of girl who could break a vase, flash a smile, and somehow make you apologize to her for being upset. I, on the other hand, was serious. That was the word they always used: serious. Too focused, too ambitious. "Julia's always got her nose in a book," Mom would sigh, as if being intelligent were some kind of character flaw. "Not everyone wants to talk about work all the time," Dad would add whenever I mentioned my dreams of becoming an architect. This would be the last thing Chloe ever took from me. Chloe could do no wrong. If she brought home a mediocre report card, it was because she's so creative. If I earned straight A's, the response was, well, of course you did. You're Julia. And then there were the things she took from me. When I was 16, my first boyfriend, Tyler, dumped me, out of the blue. 2 weeks later, I saw him holding hands with Chloe at the school dance. When I confronted her, she just laughed and said, "Don't be so dramatic, Jules. You weren't really into him anyway." At 18, I worked tirelessly for a prestigious architecture scholarship. The day before my final interview, my portfolio mysteriously vanished. Chloe, suddenly inspired, applied last minute and got the scholarship instead. Even as adults, the pattern continued. I secured an internship at our family's architecture firm, Wallace Designs and Associates, only to have Chloe charm her way into a client relations role she wasn't even qualified for. When the promotion I'd been promised went to her, my father said, "Clients like her more. She's personable. You're you." Through it all, there was only one person who truly saw me, my grandmother, Eleanor Wallace. Grandma Eleanor built Wallace Designs from nothing in the 1970s, back when women weren't supposed to lead companies. She was tough, brilliant, and utterly uncompromising. "You have substance, Julia," she told me once, her weathered hands covering mine. "Substance lasts, charm fades." Those words stayed with me, especially now. Because on this wedding day, with Chloe basking in the spotlight and my parents doting on her as usual, I knew one thing for certain: Grandma Eleanor might be gone, but her belief in me wasn't. And before the day was over, everyone else would see what she saw all along. The day I walked in on Chloe and Ethan is burned into my memory like a scar. It was a Thursday evening, late spring, one of those dusky nights when the sky glows lavender before darkness falls. I had come home early from a business trip, exhausted but excited. Ethan wasn't expecting me until the next morning, and I couldn't wait to surprise him. We'd been struggling to connect lately, but I told myself it was just stress, work deadlines, wedding planning, the usual. When I opened the door to our shared apartment, I immediately noticed two things: the faint scent of Chloe's perfume, sweet and floral, and a trail of clothes leading down the hallway. At first, my brain rejected what my eyes saw. Chloe didn't live here. She had no reason to be here. My little sister would... But then I heard a laugh, her laugh, followed by Ethan's low voice. I don't remember dropping my suitcase, but I remember the sound of my own heart hammering in my ears as I shoved the bedroom door open. There they were, Chloe and Ethan, my sister and my fiancé, in our bed, on the sheets we'd received as an engagement gift. The sound that escaped me didn't even seem human. Chloe scrambled to grab the comforter, her face going pale before flushing red. Ethan leapt up, stammering my name, but there were no words that could fix what I was seeing. His first actual sentence, the thing he chose to say as my entire world collapsed: She's just more fun than you, Julia." That one sentence broke something in me forever. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Within 24 hours, Chloe and Ethan were living together in a downtown loft. A week later, Chloe had blasted their engagement across every social media platform she could find. Their photo was nauseatingly perfect, Chloe beaming at sunset, Ethan down on one knee, the very ring he'd once slipped onto hers, now glinting on hers. The caption read, "When you know, you know. #TrueLove, #soulmates, #blessedbride." Hundreds of comments flooded in. "You two are perfect together. So happy for you, Chloe. Love wins." Not one person asked how I was doing. Not one. By Monday, the gossip had reached my workplace, Wallace Designs and Associates. Our firm was like a family, or at least that's what I used to believe. Now, everywhere I went, conversations stopped mid-sentence. My coworkers stared, then quickly looked away, whispering behind their hands. The final blow came when my boss, Richard, called me into his office. Julia, maybe you should take some time off, he said gently, just until things calm down. Things? I echoed, my voice like ice. He wouldn't meet my gaze. There's chatter. Clients are concerned. We've reassigned the Waterfront Plaza project. The Waterfront Plaza project. 2 years of my life. 2 years of late nights, missed birthdays, and blood, sweat, and tears, all handed over to someone who'd been at the firm for 6 months. My bonus evaporated, my promotion vanished, my reputation lay in ruins. Meanwhile, Chloe posted daily updates of her fairy tale engagement, cake tastings, dress fittings, venue tours, all at places I had chosen, vendors I had booked, plans I had made. Each post felt like a dagger to the heart, twisted slowly, deliberately. She wasn't just living my life, she was performing it for an audience, and everyone applauded. But while Chloe flaunted her triumph, I was slowly disappearing. Invisible, forgotten, alone. Or so she thought. 3 days after losing my project, I got a call from Martin, the firm's accountant. His tone was urgent, clipped, almost panicked. "Julia, we need to meet, today." I met him at a quiet coffee shop across town, away from prying eyes. His hands shook as he slid a folder across the table. "Your father's been hiding the numbers," he said. "The firm is in serious trouble." I flipped through the documents, my stomach dropping with every page. Red ink everywhere. Unpaid invoices, loans taken out against company assets, investments that had crashed and burned. "How bad is it?" I whispered. 3 months, Martin said grimly. "Maybe less. If we don't get a cash infusion or a major investor, Wallace Designs is finished." The room tilted slightly. My family's legacy, my grandmother's life's work, about to go up in smoke? And my father had said nothing. I confronted him that evening. He didn't deny it. "I was going to fix it," Dad snapped, his face red with anger and embarrassment. "The Thompsons are coming to Chloe's wedding. They have money, connections. If we impress them, they might invest." Realization hit me like a slap. "You want me to go to Chloe's wedding to help you schmooze investors?" "This is bigger than your feelings, Julia," Dad said sharply. "The family business is at stake. You need to stop being selfish and do what's best for all of us." Selfish, that word again. I wanted to scream, to tell him that Chloe had stolen everything from me. But instead, I stayed quiet, because in that moment, something shifted inside me. My pain turned into clarity. I smiled, a small, cold smile that Dad didn't even notice. "Fine," I said softly. "I'll be there." He thought he'd won. He didn't realize he'd just given me the perfect stage for my plan. The next day, I met with Robert Hayes, my grandmother's lawyer. Robert had been trying to get me into his office for weeks, but I'd been too consumed by my own heartbreak to care. Now, with the company on the brink of collapse and Chloe's wedding looming, I was ready to listen. Robert greeted me warmly, but wasted no time. "Your grandmother was a visionary," he began, sliding a thick packet of papers across his desk. "She planned for every contingency." I scanned the documents, frowning. This says she controlled 78% of the company through various trusts? That can't be right. Dad's the president. "President," Robert said dryly, "not owner. Eleanor kept the majority quietly in her name. She never trusted your father's judgment." A strange mixture of pride and sorrow welled in my chest. Grandma Eleanor had always been shrewd, but this level of foresight was staggering. "There are conditions attached to the inheritance," Robert continued, "very strict ones." My breath caught. "Conditions?" He nodded. "The heir must be unmarried or married to someone financially stable, approved by the board of directors. No significant debts, no history of fraud. Additionally, any family member who engages in fidelity, specifically with an engaged person, is automatically disqualified." My pulse began to race as the pieces clicked together. Chloe, Ethan, their affair, their wedding? Robert leaned forward, his eyes sharp. If Chloe marries Ethan, she forfeits her claim entirely. And given Ethan's financial situation, "He's in debt," I whispered. "Deep debt. Robert's expression didn't change, but I caught the tiniest hint of satisfaction. Then, he would never meet the board's approval. Which means, Julia, that if Chloe goes through with this marriage, the entire estate will default to you. I sat back in my chair, stunned. All this time, Chloe thought she was taking everything from me. Ethan, the wedding, the company, our family's love. But in reality, she was walking straight into a trap Grandma had set long before either of us realized it existed. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope stir in my chest. I wasn't powerless. I held the ultimate card, and I was about to play it. The 2 weeks leading up to the wedding passed in a blur of quiet, calculated preparation. While Chloe flaunted her happily ever after online, I moved through the shadows, building my case piece by piece. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice, and making sure my grandmother's legacy didn't end up in Chloe's shallow, manicured hands. The first thing I needed was proof. I hired a private investigator to dig into Ethan's finances. The results were even worse than I expected. Over $200,000 in gambling debt, 3 maxed-out credit cards, 2 of them in my name, a failed business venture in Miami that left unpaid contractors furious and creditors circling like vultures. I compiled everything into a neat folder: bank statements, signed agreements, fraudulent applications with Ethan's handwriting all over them. Then I turned my attention to Chloe. Every smug post she'd made became part of my arsenal. Photos of her and Ethan planning their wedding, including captions like, "taking over where someone else left off." Screenshots of her flaunting expensive purchases while the company quietly sank. Evidence of her recklessness, her entitlement, her pattern of taking whatever she wanted without a second thought. Every piece of evidence went into the wooden box Robert had given me. From the outside, I stayed silent. I didn't argue with my parents when they insisted I come to the wedding. I didn't snap back when my mother hissed, "Julia, don't embarrass us again," during a tense dinner. And when Chloe texted me photos of her dress, her venue, her perfectly staged engagement photos, I simply replied with a single heart emoji. Let them think I was broken. Let them underestimate me. Because the quieter I was, the louder my reveal would be. The night before the wedding, they came for me. I was curled up on my couch, reviewing my folder one last time, when the knock came. It wasn't a polite tap, it was a full-on pounding, rattling my door. When I opened it, there they were, my parents and Aunt Martha, the family's self-appointed enforcer. Their faces were tense, their bodies rigid. The smell of Mom's expensive perfume clung to the air like a cloud of desperation. "Julia, we need to talk," Dad said, pushing past me into the apartment like he owned the place. I crossed my arms. "About what?" "You know what," Aunt Martha snapped. "This ridiculous stunt you're planning. You cannot ruin Chloe's big day." I raised an eyebrow. "Ruin it? I'm just attending, like you all asked me to." Mom's hands fluttered nervously. "Julia, please, you've made your point. Just don't do anything dramatic. We'll give you whatever you need, money even." My laugh was sharp and humorless. "You're offering to pay me to stay away from my own sister's wedding?" "If that's what it takes," Mom said quietly. "Chloe deserves a fresh start." I stared at her, disbelief morphing into cold fury. Chloe deserves a fresh start? She's marrying my fiancé, Mom. "That's different," Dad snapped. "They fell in love. It happens." "They fell in love in my bed," I said flatly. Silence fell over the room like a heavy blanket. Even Aunt Martha shifted uncomfortably. "This isn't just about you," Dad said finally. "The Thompsons will be there tomorrow. If they see any hint of drama, they'll walk. The company will go under. Do you really want to destroy everything your grandmother built?" I stepped closer to him, lowering my voice. "You think Chloe's wedding will save the company? But maybe you should worry less about me and more about the skeletons in your own closet." His face went pale. You don't know anything," he stammered. "Oh, I know enough," I said with a small, knowing smile. "See you at 2 o'clock sharp." I closed the door before they could reply, their muffled protests echoing down the hallway. An hour later, my phone lit up with Chloe's name. I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won. I answered on the third ring, keeping my voice calm and neutral. "Well, well," I said lightly, "the blushing bride calls." Chloe's tone was syrupy sweet with a sharp edge beneath it. "Julia, I just wanted to check in, make sure you're not planning to, do anything crazy tomorrow." "Crazy?" I repeated, feigning innocence. "Why would I do that?" "Because you've been quiet," she said, suspicion creeping into her voice. "Too quiet. It's weird." I smiled into the phone, though she couldn't see it. "I wouldn't miss your big day for the world, Chloe. You know me, always the supportive sister." There was a pause on the other end. I could practically hear her trying to decode my tone. "Just don't wear white," she said finally, the insecurity slipping through. "That would be psycho." "Wouldn't dream of it," I lied smoothly. She hung up first, clearly unsettled. I set my phone down and stared at the wooden box on my coffee table. Tomorrow, everything would change. By the time Chloe realized what was happening, it would be far too late to stop it. St. Mary's Cathedral looked like something out of a bridal magazine. White roses lined the pews, crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and a string quartet played softly in the corner. It was, without a doubt, the perfect wedding. My perfect wedding. Except it wasn't mine. I walked past clusters of whispering guests, my white dress catching in the light like a flare in a storm. The seating chart near the entrance confirmed exactly how my family felt about me. Table 19, the very last table. Tucked away by the kitchen doors with the caterers' families and random plus ones who didn't even know the couple. Perfect. They wanted me hidden, and I wanted the element of surprise. As I took my seat, my eyes scanned the crowd. I spotted them almost immediately, 3 familiar faces seated near the front, members of my grandmother's board of directors. Robert Hayes had placed them exactly where they needed to be. Up at the altar, Chloe was a vision of smug perfection, glowing under the lights in her lace gown. Ethan stood tall beside her, grinning like a man who thought he'd won the jackpot. Neither of them realized their entire world was about to collapse. The music swelled as Chloe glided down the aisle, her designer veil trailing behind her. Guests dabbed at their eyes, phones raised to capture every second of her grand performance. I remained perfectly still, my face unreadable. Father Gregory welcomed everyone and spoke about love and commitment. His words rang hollow in my ears, drowned out by the steady thrum of my heartbeat. Then it was time for vows. Chloe went first. She clasped Ethan's hands, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. "Ethan, you came into my life when I least expected it," she began. "You showed me what true love really looks like." Her eyes flicked toward me, a smile playing on her lips. "Some people go through life thinking they know love, but real love can't be forced. It can't be scheduled or planned. It just happens. And when it does, nothing and no one can stand in its way." The crowd murmured in appreciation. Some even turned to glance at me, waiting for my reaction. I gave them nothing. Ethan's vows were shorter, clumsier. "Chloe, you bring excitement to my life," he said. "You're spontaneous, fun, everything I never knew I needed." Not once did he use the word love. Typical. Father Gregory smiled warmly as the vows concluded. "Marriage," he said, "is not only a union of hearts, but also a binding legal contract. Before we proceed, I must ask if anyone here knows of any lawful reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony. Speak now or forever hold your peace." The cathedral went silent. 200 guests holding their breath. Chloe turned slightly, smirking at me like she was daring me to make a scene. I stood. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave. Phones whipped up instantly, cameras rolling. Chloe's smirk faltered. "I object," I said, my voice steady and calm. "On legal grounds." Father Gregory blinked, startled. "Legal grounds?" "Yes." I stepped into the aisle, my heels clicking against the stone floor, each step deliberate. "I have documents that materially affect this union." Ethan's face drained of color. Chloe's bouquet trembled in her hands. Robert Hayes rose from his seat near the front. "I'm Robert Hayes, attorney for the late Eleanor Wallace's estate," he announced. "These documents are authenticated and time-sensitive. They must be read now." Father Gregory hesitated, but the weight of Robert's authority silenced any protest. He took the envelope I handed him, his hands visibly shaking as he unfolded the papers. He began to read, his voice trembling at first, then growing stronger. "This says that the entirety of Wallace Designs and Associates, as well as all associated assets, properties, and patents, valued at $8 million, are to be inherited by Julia Wallace." The crowd erupted into stunned murmurs. Chloe's head whipped toward me, eyes wide with disbelief. "But," Father Gregory continued, raising his voice, "there are strict conditions. Any family member who marries someone with debts exceeding $50,000 or who has committed financial fraud is automatically disqualified. Furthermore, any family member who engages in infidelity with an engaged person is permanently barred from inheriting." The silence that followed was deafening. My gaze locked on Ethan. "How much debt are you carrying these days?" I asked casually. 200,000? 250? Ethan's mouth opened and closed like a fish, but no words came out. "And those credit cards you opened in my name?" I added smoothly. "Federal fraud, Ethan. I have the signed applications right here." Gasps and horrified whispers filled the air. Several guests stood, craning to see better. Phones zoomed in. Chloe's face turned a sickly shade of gray. That's not true. This can't be happening." "Oh, it's happening," Robert said crisply. "Mrs. Wallace planned for every scenario. Marrying a man who defrauded your own sister while he was still engaged to her? That's the very definition of a violation." Father Gregory's voice was solemn as he read the final clause. "Given these circumstances, Chloe Wallace is hereby stripped of any claim to the estate. The sole beneficiary remains Julia Wallace." The cathedral exploded into chaos. "No!" Chloe screamed, clutching Ethan's arm. "Tell them it's not true. Tell them." Ethan yanked his arm away, his expression shifting from panic to rage. "You signed a prenup, Chloe, remember? Everything separate, no claims on each other's assets." Chloe stared at him, horrified. You tricked me. You never loved me. You just wanted money," I finished for her, my tone razor sharp. "And you gave him none, because you have none." The guests were on their feet now, shouting, recording, some openly laughing at the spectacle. Chloe's perfect wedding had become a viral train wreck in real time. "You thought you were taking everything from me," I said, my voice rising just enough to carry over the noise. "But all you did was hand me exactly what Grandma wanted me to have. The company, the properties, the legacy. And you get Ethan and his debt," Robert added dryly. Chloe swayed on her feet, looking like she might faint. This isn't over." "Oh, it is," I said calmly. "Because while you were busy playing bride, I was preparing for this exact moment." I turned to Father Gregory, who was still holding the will, stunned, speechless. "Go ahead and call it, Father. There's no marriage today." His voice was almost a whisper. "The ceremony is canceled." The cathedral erupted once more as I turned and walked back down the aisle, the queen of a kingdom Chloe never saw coming. Behind me, the sound of Chloe's sobs mingled with Ethan's furious shouting and the relentless clicking of cameras. Justice had arrived, and it was wearing white. For a heartbeat, the cathedral was silent, utterly, completely silent. Then Chloe turned on Ethan, her face contorted with rage and betrayal. You used me," she screamed, shoving him so hard he stumbled back into the altar. "You knew about the inheritance, didn't you? You never loved me." Ethan threw up his hands, trying to backpedal. "Chloe, calm down. I just thought we could start fresh. I didn't know Julia would—" "Liar!" Chloe's voice cracked, raw and hysterical. "You just wanted my money, except I don't have any. You ruined me." Phones shot up all around them, capturing every second of Chloe's very public meltdown. Hashtags were already forming in the minds of 200 gleeful guests. Ethan tried to flee, shoving through the crowd, but two uniformed officers stepped into his path. Robert Hayes, calm and collected, gestured to them. "Mr. Carter won't be leaving just yet," Robert said smoothly. "He has questions to answer about those fraudulent credit cards." "You can't do this," Ethan shouted, his face beet red. "She set me up." "You set yourself up the moment you forged Julia's name," one officer replied, snapping handcuffs around his wrists. Meanwhile, Dad was cornered near the front by the three board members. Mrs. Chen, the sharpest of them all, held up a tablet displaying company records. "Mr. Wallace, can you explain these personal withdrawals, these mortgages taken out against company property?" Dad blustered, face purple with rage. "Those were business expenses." "No," Mrs. Chen said coldly, "that's embezzlement. You're finished." By now, the entire event had dissolved into chaos, guests screaming, cameras flashing, Chloe sobbing in the aisle as Ethan was led away. The wedding was over. So was their illusion of control. I stood calmly at the center of the storm, the only one untouched by the destruction swirling around me. The wooden box was back in my hands, its purpose fulfilled. Chloe was on the floor, mascara streaking her cheeks. Dad was shouting at Mrs. Chen. Mom clung to a chair, pale and trembling. I took a deep breath, savoring the moment, then turned to the stunned crowd. "Thank you all for coming today," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the cathedral. "It's been enlightening. The reception is still fully paid for, by me, in fact, so please enjoy yourselves." A ripple of laughter swept through the guests, cutting through the chaos. Then I smiled, serene and unbothered, and walked back down the aisle. No rush, no glance backward. I stepped out into the crisp afternoon air, leaving behind the destruction Chloe and Ethan had created. By the time they understood what had truly happened, I would be long gone, free, powerful, exactly where I was meant to be. The next morning, the video was everywhere. Bride's sister objects, exposes $8 million secret at wedding. Clips of me standing in white, calmly dismantling Chloe and Ethan's future, spread like wildfire. 3 million views by sunrise. The comments were brutal, but mostly supportive. "The sister is a legend. Justice served cold. Imagine losing $8 million for a broke cheater." Chloe's influencer career imploded overnight, her carefully curated social media feeds filled with venomous comments. Within days, she deleted everything and disappeared from public view. Ethan pleaded guilty to fraud to avoid a lengthy trial. He was sentenced to restitution payments and community service, his reputation destroyed. Last I heard, he'd fled to his parents' house in another state, broke and humiliated. As for my parents, the fallout was swift and merciless. The board removed Dad from his position, stripping him of all authority. Their personal assets were frozen during the embezzlement investigation. They had to sell the family home and downsize into a modest apartment. Mom took a part-time job for the first time in her life. Meanwhile, Wallace Designs thrived under my leadership. Clients flocked to the company, drawn by the story of a woman who had quietly built her career while everyone underestimated her. Within a month, I'd landed 2 major contracts, including one my father had chased unsuccessfully for years. For the first time, the company was truly mine, just as Grandma Eleanor had always intended. A week later, I sat alone in my new office. A letter from Grandma Eleanor spread across my desk. "Patience, my dear," she had written in her precise handwriting. "The world will test you. Let others reveal themselves. When the time comes, rise, not with anger, but with strength." I folded the letter carefully, my heart full. Chloe had screamed. Ethan had schemed. Dad had blustered. I had stayed silent. And in the end, silence had been my greatest weapon. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living fully, freely, and watching others face the truth they created.